my god, I love this book so much. Okay, I finished this book last week, but I was like, I need to like talk about this. So this book is called Stoner by John Williams. It's a novel about this man who is an English professor in a small town in the Midwest. And basically his life is just kind of frigid, very joyless, but he like loves writing. Like the one thing that brings him a lot of joy is like teaching and writing. He comes from an agricultural town, farmers that he wants to go to school. He basically like his life kind of just happens to him in a way. This book is about monotony, but it's about like life, how life most of the time is. In a time when you have seen so many books and shows and just art in general that is so plot driven, it is, I think, wonderful to see something that is sort of like in the margin, something in the betweens, because this book is about like everything that is in the margin. It's about someone who is so dissatisfied with their life that they don't actually have like a ton of things to look forward to, yet like even the small things are taken from them. Their person that they're married to is incredibly like cruel in ways that we are like actually able to humanize. Like he is married to this woman named Edith who is just like hates his guts. She mostly actually hates their life and what they have built. His wife is sort of an outsider, even though they have lived together for a very long time. He doesn't feel like he has very deep relationships, even though he is a nice, kind man. His students don't really know him, but he's an excellent professor. He's just like also someone who's scared of inconveniencing people, especially those he cares for, that he basically mutes everything that he is, so nobody really knows who he is, including his own child. He's also incredibly like dispassionate about the impact that he makes in the world. Like the one thing that he's incredibly passionate about and something that he follows through is the fact that he wants to be a teacher. Like he's like a professor, you know, in this university. And this beef that he has with this professor named Lomax, who like misunderstands who he is because he thinks he's ableist when really he thinks one way. And it's about being misunderstood. It's about purpose and meaning and everything in between. In a lot of like contemporary novels, so this book is written in the 60s. I think contemporary novels have a way to demonize normalcy and regularity like vigorously. And I think to see a book that is just like someone who's dissatisfied with their life, but that is the life, that's the only life they ever known, is just like really fascinating. The world building of this book is so like claustrophobic, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Severance by Ling Ma, because not necessarily within the story, but like the fact that everything feels so claustrophobic and very like routine and monotonous. Yeah, just familiar in that way. It's just like the opposite of curation that contemporary novels really aspire for. I'm not saying that all contemporary novels do that, but I feel like contemporary novels specifically have this problem of like over curating character, over curating a world, over curating like a personality, diagnosing someone with something before even understanding them as human is something that I have seen a lot of as an issue. At the beginning of the book, like really up to maybe before his daughter was born, I really liked the story, but I was like, okay, Edith is sort of like a cruel, intelligent person who's also incredibly like unwell, right? Also like she knows what she's doing, right? And I think at first I was like, okay, it's John Williams writing women, like very like dichotomously, like this man, this poor man, and then kind of contrasting him to someone who's very cruel and intelligent and beautiful, desirable, but also just incredibly difficult. And I was like, is that what he's doing? But anyway, I'm so glad I kept reading. It is the part where Stoner started having like an affair with Catherine Driscoll, another person from his university that he teaches at. And I really love the contrast in the foil between Catherine Driscoll and Edith, like Stoner's wife, because I feel like if he only represented a type of woman and like for the rest of the time, like his mom was kind of seen as like almost like very demure and almost like apathetic to his suffering or whatever, or like her love for him. And I was kind of like I was like, okay, John Williams' representation of women, like specifically like in this way. But I really love how Catherine Driscoll is like super self-aware. She knows that she's improper and like why she's having this affair. She kind of, I think, sees Stoner for what he is. She's so humanized, and I really love how John Williams humanized Catherine Driscoll without like pedestaling her or evangelizing her as comparison to Edith, because like she still did this thing of being or like having a marital affair thing with this professor. Like, wow, this is so smart. I think something that's also consistent in this book is that Stoner, love for literature, is something that is embodied all throughout. I really like this passage. The love of literature, of language, of the mystery of the mind, that hearts showing themselves in the minute, strange and unexpected combinations of letters and words in the blackest and coldest print, and the love which he had hidden as if it were illicit and dangerous, he began to display tentatively at first, and then boldly, and then proudly. Like, what are the things that you're allowed to be like openly passionate about, and what are the things you're supposed to hold back? Distance and nothingness, and life being incredibly like this cheerless labor, like life being laborious, life being consistently predictable, like life being incredibly like you being apathetic to the life that you're living. This book is like a discussion about existentialism and existential philosophy, but in a way that feels like very familiar, because sometimes some of those discussions and contemplative reflections feel like really distant to us. But I don't know, Stoner felt like familiar, like almost like someone I knew in my own life, and even parts of me that I recognize. Having an aspiration about a relationship and finding something not at all of that. Disappointment about life, disappointment about people's relationship to your relationship to people, your impact on people and people's impact on you. Being fairly familiar with changes, and like really the Midwest like winter being like really personified in a way that like the Stoner's emotions are displayed in the books. Like the fact that he just has this distant relationship with everyone around him and nobody really understands him, and spoiler alert, to his own death, like to his own detriment. It's about like this passing on, like just silence and quietness and the lack of meaning, really. I think as someone who is a reader, I would like to make a meaning out of everything, because everything has a meaning. But the fact that this book is contradictorily without meaning, like he has lived a life without meaning, but that is so meaningful, is so important to me. One of the things that I really loved about it is also the fact that like, you know, the writer John Williams has a strong hold of like relationship dynamics, and like his understanding of people is so raw and honest. Like, you know, Stoner did not die without seeing love. He imagined love as something that you saw through one person, like you fell in love with one person and that's how you saw love, and then all of a sudden life is all better. And that is not the case at all, because he saw love through infidelity, and he saw love through moments of like despair. He saw love through his friendships that he lost ultimately. He also saw love through continuous battle over something so bureaucratic with Lomax. Say that like the one thing that he felt incredibly passionate about consistently is his stubbornness to Lomax, and not willing to give up who he is and not retire early, because he just knew that like who Lomax saw him as versus who he saw himself as are two different entities. One of the starting points of one of the chapters, it just breaks my heart. Of the lines from chapter 12. In the year, and especially in the winter month, he found himself returning more and more frequently to such state of unreality. At will, He seemed able to remove his consciousness from the body that contained it, and he observed himself as if he were an oddly familiar stranger doing the oddly familiar things that he had to do. It was a dissociation that he had never felt before. He knew that he ought to be troubled by it, and he was numb, and he could not convince himself that it mattered. He was 42 years old, and he could see nothing before him, and he wished to enjoy and little behind him, and he cared to remember. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I love how John Williams writes everyone with so much vigorous humanity that it makes me almost really fucking sad.